Hi everybody, I'm Byron. I'm here reviewing another episode of Family Ties called Speed Trap. I've actually referenced this episode a few times. It's one of the most notorious episodes of the show, and I'm trying to think if it would be a good first episode to watch. It's a good episode. What I'm worried about is, do you need to understand the character of Alex before you get started, before you can understand this episode? I don't think so. I think you get what you need to know from Alex. Uh, anyway, he comes in and he's studying hard for his midterms. Now, I thought this episode would be at the end of the second season because I thought he would be studying for his finals. For those of you who don't remember, in high school, of course, lasts the whole year. So midterm happens in winter and the final happens in May. But you get a grade for that semester still. That's how it worked in my high school. Anyway, excuse me. He's studying hard for his finals, and he comes in, and he's like, "Oh, I'm studying really hard for these midterms," and that's when I thought, "Oh, this might be the episode," and because I knew the title, "Speed Trap," so that was another clue that this was the episode, and the midterms and his finals. And he asks Mallory for some of Effie's diet pills. Effie, another character who never showed up before, and I don't think ever shows up again. She doesn't even show up in this episode. She's just referenced. And Mallory gets the pills by promising that Effie will go out with Alex. Again, we never see Effie. We never see this event. It keeps coming. It comes up a few times in the episode. And before he takes the pills, he has this soliloquy. It's a soliloquy, not a monologue, and it's not natural. I talk to myself, and I've talked to some other people about talking to yourself. And usually, what we do is when we talk to ourselves, is we have two parts of a conversation. We're having a conversation with a fictional person, and that is that we only speak one half of the conversation. And I think that's the natural way someone talks to themselves. And yeah, I think that's natural, and that's how people do it. So that was not good. It's a soliloquy. It's a dramatic conceit rather than a realistic one, although it could have been realistic. And then he and then he turns to Richard Nixon for help, and he says, "Nixon, would you do something you knew was wrong?" But then he decides to take the pills, and then immediately, and he tells Mallory, "Look, I'm not going to take them. I just want to have them." Is sort of what he says to her, and he says, but then he takes the pills and he comes downstairs. He starts talking, and Mallory immediately knows that he's been doing it. And there's lots and lots of jokes. There's some jokes just about Alex's character. The jokes are not done at the expense of the drugs in any way. It just allows him to do joke after joke after joke after joke, which is really good. It actually works out really good. It makes it a really funny episode. And a lot of the jokes are sort of at the expense of other characters because he brings up their traits and talks about them a bit. And there is one joke sort of to do with the drugs where he does sort of a Tom Cruise thing and he jumps onto the back of the counter, and it's not that big a physical feat. I mentioned in the fusion of how Tom Hanks leaps over a counter, which is kind of a big physical feat. This one, it's just a bit of a hop, but it feels really energetic and it's really funny. And then Mallory decides not to give him any more pills. And then Alex steals the pills from her. And then eventually Steve confronts him. He figures it out. I think after a week of this behavior, he wouldn't need to. Yeah, he just figures it out on his own. I remember now. He just figures it out on his own. And he tells Alex, "I used them myself." And it's very the message of this, and I guess sort of the whole show, is that drugs are bad. I think even they would say marijuana, you shouldn't do that. Even though the parents did the marijuana, I sound like a very old person. The marijuana. They did the marijuana. Uh, they did the marijuana. I think they would go back and say it was wrong, and they shouldn't have. There were a lot of good. It takes a generally positive view of the '60s, but it still says drugs are bad. Uh, but it would probably blame the generation before the hippies for not being open and honest about drugs, for the reason the problem happened in the first place. The problem with drugs happened. And Steve goes on one of his long, boring speeches, and it's the famous. And this is the scene I remember from way back. Probably the most vivid memory I have of this show as a kid is Steve's owl speech. It's like, we used to pull all-nighters in college. There was one kid called the Owl. Now, he wasn't called the Owl because he pulled all-nighters. He was called the Owl because he could turn his head all the way. I don't know why that sticks with me so much, but it does. Anyway, there's just a lot of physical comedy in the episode. Because of the speed, I mentioned that there's a lot of physical comedy in the episode. And Mallory comes in, and Alex goes, "Oh, I told Mom and Dad everything." And Mallory goes, "Oh, so you know I gave him the pills?" And he says, "We didn't know that." And Alex goes, "Oh, I didn't tell them that, you idiot." But yeah, it's a great episode. I'm gonna stop recommending the show because if you've watched this many, well, I guess maybe some people would just watch an episode of this. But I'm probably going to stop recommending the show at this point in every episode. Watch the show. It's arguably the best. Raymond might be better. Dick Van Dyke might be better. But this is one of the top 3 sitcoms. Yeah. And go watch it. Yeah, watch it. If you've been watching all of these, which I don't think anyone has, this is the time to start watching the show. Definitely. Anyway, bye.